Welcome to Unleash Your Supernova Live. I'm your host, Nova Lorraine, and author of Unleash Your Supernova. I'm also a mother of four, the founder of Raine magazine, Pink Kangaru, the Raine School of Fashion, and Nova Lorraine International. I am here with one of my favorite people in the world, my co-host, Ryon Anderson, founder of Ryon Esquire, a business and peak performance coaching and consulting company. He'll be joining me as my partner in crime as we help you unleash your supernova. If you end up liking Ryon as much as I do, you can get more by checking out RyonEsquire.com. That's Ryon with an O, R-Y-O-N, Esquire.com. Join the fun live every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern as we help you increase creativity, beat burnout, and happily survive the roller coaster of creative entrepreneurship. This is a companion show to the book, Unleash Your Supernova, your go-to guide for immediately usable tips on mindset, creativity hacks, decreasing stress, and unlocking your limitless potential. If you miss us on Fridays on BBS Radio, no problem. Make sure to download and subscribe to the Unleash Your Supernova podcast. Hey, Ryon.
How's it going, Nova?
I'm good. You ready for another show?
I am. I have a quick question, though. Were you going for your sex and relationship expert voice there in the intro, or not?
Did you like that? Did you like it?
I did. You know, I feel very turned on and ready to have an amazing show now. So, yeah, I did. It was definitely a mood-setting intro. So, we'll see how it goes.
Oh man! All right, let's see how it goes. Oh man! You know what? I literally just came from watching my daughter's dance competition, and
how'd it go?
It's been a while. Mm-hmm. Amazing. It was so awesome. I mean, it's been, I don't know, over a year since I've been to a public venue, and everyone was 6 feet apart. There wasn't really many people there because they only allowed one family member to attend. Right. But that was fine, and everyone had masks and everything else. But the girls were phenomenal, and they did have some male dancers too, which was really nice to see. And it was a lot of fun. It was just a ton of fun. I was really inspired. I love dance as a form of expression. I used to dance once upon a time. You know, I dance in the shower still, you know.
Yeah.
But
kind of goes with the intro.
No, you know? It was a good time. It goes with my intro.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So what are you up to today?
Oh, it's been a crazy busy day. I mean, you know, between clients and just kind of like an intro phone call with somebody, and then I was listening to a bunch of podcasts, and some of them really inspired me. So not only did I listen to podcasts, but I like completely rewrote like my marketing message based on some of the podcasts that I heard, just because I didn't want to lose like the creative juices and the ideas that I had, and so I worked till like 6:30 my time, just getting all that stuff done because I didn't want to forget it. And it's so funny because when I started doing what I'm doing, like my goal was 4 days a week, Fridays off. Fridays are my busiest freaking days, which I think I've mentioned before.
Right?
And it's crazy for some reason. I must have like Flow Friday because I get inspired quite frequently on Friday to make like massive changes that take time, right? So yeah, Fridays are not calm days for me.
That's so funny.
Good.
I had a conversation earlier today with another entrepreneur, and it was about midday. It was like 12:30, and he was like, "How was your day?" And I was like, "I am exhausted," and it's only 12:30, and it's a Friday, and same. Like usually, my Fridays are my chill day. It was like catch up with everything that went on for the week, kind of decompress, use it more as a creative day. But as of lately, like just meetings and calls and projects have been creeping up in my Fridays. So I am literally exhausted by the end of Friday.
Yeah, my Thursdays I have nothing to do, but my Fridays are jam-packed.
Yeah, I'm definitely starting to create blocks of time that I'm protecting during the week, just so I have that stamina to run through until Friday. And you know what I'm going to try, though? Because I was talking to another entrepreneur this morning that says he gets up at 4 in the morning, 4 a.m.
Yep.
And I actually know another guy that does that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I get my workout in. I work out for about an hour, hour and a half. And I was like, well, what time do you go to bed? And he's like, like 10, 10, maybe 11 at the latest. I was like, okay, that's not so bad. I was inspired. I was like, I need to step it up a little bit. Maybe I'll get up at 5.
Points. Yeah, 2 points about that. So when I was in law school, there were a couple days a week that I got up at 4:20 in the morning because I had 8 o'clock classes. And I got up the same reason. I got up early. I got up to work out before class because I knew it was the one time of day that I could control that, class wasn't going to come up, opportunity to go grab lunch or dinner with a friend wasn't going to come up, right? And it was, and that right? kind of the same philosophy that a lot of entrepreneurs do. People aren't going to be calling. Kids aren't going to be interrupting you, right? Because who the hell's up at 4:20 in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning who's in their right mind, right? And there's a lot of, that all logically makes sense in a vacuum, right? But the reality is you have to do what, especially for, creatives like you and me, you have to do what works best for your biological rhythms. And, if you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning all you want to, but if you're going to be, if that's going to affect your creativity, or if your creativity isn't until, 1 or 2 in the afternoon, that's going to kill everything just because, it's not going to be the most productive time of day for you. And that's something that's what always gets me about some of that self-help stuff is, it sounds great, but, it doesn't factor in the individual factors, right? And the other thing is, there's been so much research on sleep, right? And I mean, all the research says, 7 to 8 hours, and that's pretty consistent among all people, to really perform, optimally, 7 to 8 hours. Anything less than that consistently, it's about, drinking and driving as far as, how it affects performance. And, Americans pride themselves on, how little sleep they get and how busy they are. Great, but how good is your work? That's always my question, right? So.
Well, you know what? There's another entrepreneur that I know who's on the West Coast, and he does definitely the 4 a.m. grind. And he said he just loves the fact that he's working while everyone else is sleeping. He just loves that. And he's like, I'm getting ahead because while you're asleep, I'm working. But he also takes naps. So he does this. He's, studied Nikola.
So while I'm working, Tesla. He's asleep. He never says that part of it, does he? He never says that part of it, does he?
But no, he likes that idea of doing the spurts, being awake and then taking those daytime naps. And for some people, it works really well. I just find it fascinating that I'm definitely a sun person. My body wakes up. I naturally get up with the sunshine, with the sunrise. Yep. And so it's just fascinating that people can get up. It's pitch dark for hours, and they're wide awake and ready to go 2-3 hours before the sunrise. It just blows my mind. But I'm inspired.
Yeah, no.
I will be trying the 5 a.m. thing on a regular basis.
Okay.
We'll see. I'll check in with you. Ask me
we'll check in on Friday. We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
Okay, we'll check in on Friday. We'll check in on Friday.
I'll be like, how's it going, Nova? I've been up since 5 a.m. This has been the longest week ever. Does anybody know how early 5 a.m. is? The roosters aren't even crowing yet. Yeah. Because those of you that don't know, Nova lives in Amish country, and there's lots of roosters there.
Lots of roosters. Lots of roosters and lots of manure. It's the fragrance of springtime around here. I'm like, oh, yeah, that. I'm surprised. Every time when I step outside and I smell, okay, there's a lot of farms. There's a lot of beautiful farms around us.
Yeah.
But when you get hit in the face with the woof of, and if you don't grow up around, I didn't grow up around here. I'm like, what the? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right.
I grew up on a dairy. I grew up on a dairy. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. My dad was always like, smells like money. I'm like, yeah, you definitely got a tumor going for it. It doesn't smell like money to anybody else but you. So, yeah.
So today we're going to go over mindset, not just any type of mindset, but the athletic mindset. And this is something that I love to talk about. Of course, I talk about it in the book, in Unleash Your Supernova, because I think it's so important for us to really awaken, is what I call it. Awaken the inner athlete. Like, you do not have to be an athlete to understand the concept of how to awaken that inner athlete. And I feel it's a game changer when it comes to entrepreneurship. So I definitely want to touch on that. And, for those of you that don't know me personally, I was an athlete throughout all of my career in school. I try to stay fit. I run, I do my workouts, I do weight training, and I just absolutely love the idea of staying physically strong, because it really does impact your mental health as well. And but we're going to focus more on not so much, how fitness will impact your mindset, but how everyone can tap into what I'm calling that inner athlete and the athletic mindset. So I'm going to let you chime in, because I know you have a background as it relates to sports and being an athlete as well. So I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, you want to share my background as far as sports, or what my thoughts were? Yeah. So
and your love of sports and all that jazz.
Yeah, so my background in sports, as far as actually getting to play competitively, is unfortunately short, because I randomly got sick, lost my vision at 11. But up until then, my goal in life was being an NFL quarterback. So sports have always been a huge part of who I am, really my identity. I love competition. I love going basically pitting yourself against somebody else and seeing who's going to win, and then if you lose, figure out why you lost, and bounce back up and figure out how to beat them. I just love that. And it's immediate feedback, right? Whether or not you won or lost, whatever that, whether it's a play or I guess mostly a play, but it's immediate feedback, and which is so crucial to quick learning, because you immediately know this worked, this didn't work, and you figure out why. And I also love just the it's the working with the team, and really, because it's so crucial to success now, and life and business, and it really shows you teamwork, but not only just working with somebody else, but working with people who have different skill sets than you, right? That are complementary skill sets. It really shows you that humans were built as a cooperative species, and that we really can conquer so much more together, right? Working together, focused on a goal as a unit. We can conquer so much more that way than we ever can individually, right? So I really love into the athlete mindset, because it is competitive, and what it really is it's always looking for that edge, a way to overcome a challenge, or beat your competitors, or unify your team behind a goal to overcome whatever challenge you have, right? And I just really love that mindset. That I guess it's just that drive to always be. If it's not always being better, at very least it's a drive to continually be improving, right? To be making continual progress, right? So.
No, I agree. And, four of the things that I'd like us to cover that I bring up in the book are, 1, conquering failure as it relates to awakening your inner athlete. 2, challenging yourself. 3, taking risks. And 4, being truthful. And, some people may be wondering, well, what does that have to do with awakening your inner athlete? Well, we're going to get to that. But I want to, Ryan and I both love sports, and we took that journey as an athlete so we can understand, what these concepts are. But for those that aren't athletes, I really want to make clear how you can bring these concepts into what you're doing as it relates to entrepreneurship. And so, being fans of sports, and I also have 4 children who are competitive athletes, and I follow a lot of really great athletes, and I love hearing their story. And some of those stories, and, I know, Ryan, you have your favorites, and I'll have you share as well. But being a mom of gymnasts, I'm going to naturally share a story that I always thought was inspiring, and my children have dabbled in soccer, basketball, of course, gymnastics, track and field, dance. I still have a child that does competitive dance. And my husband's a martial artist. I did dance. I did gymnastics. I did volleyball, softball, track and field, and then college cheer. So it was a great time being able to experience all those different sports and all of these, traits and characteristics that we're going to talk about. All of these elements were true for every single experience and for every single sport. So I'm going to share my Mary Lou story, and then I'm going to let you share one of your favorite athletes, and then we can jump into some of these elements that I was just talking about. But Mary Lou, as we know, was the first American to win that gold medal, the Olympic all-around gold medal, and was very fortunate to, when I was with one of my children, my older daughter, who is a college gymnast, to meet Mary Lou Retton in person. And there was 4 of us on this private shuttle from the hotel to a competition where her daughters were also competing at the same competition that my daughter was competing. And I remember we were in the lobby. No, it wasn't. We were in the lobby, and I was like, she looks familiar. And then my daughter and one of her very good friends comes around the corner, and I'm giving them the eye, and I'm trying to keep my cool. And I'm like, hey, like trying to like tilt my head so they could see that it's Mary Lou Retton that's standing right next to me. And then their eyes get wide, and I turned to her and said, can we just take a photo with you? Absolutely adore you. And she's like, oh, sure. She was so kind, so gracious. And then we just chatted it up on the way to the competition. So that's my Mary Lou Retton story. But anyway, prior to the Olympics, the infamous competition that put her on the Wheaties box, she actually was an alternate on the Olympic national team. And there was an individual gymnast that was training, after Olympic trials, training to then be ready to compete at the Olympics, and had gotten hurt. Mary Lou Retton took her place on the team. And then Mary Lou Retton actually had an injury that needed surgery. And so here she is recovering after surgery and still going into this competition to take the all-around. And that's what, in terms of mindset, like how powerful it is, and to be able to be persistent and determined no matter what the obstacle that's in front of you. And Gabby Douglas is an excellent story. Had the pleasure of interviewing her a few years ago. And for those of you that have gotten her book, who've seen her interviews, I mean, talk about a triumphant story. And she had every obstacle in front of her. And she won the Olympic trials, not only won the Olympic trials to guarantee her a spot on the team as, someone that came out of nowhere, beat the world champion, the defending world champion, to head to the Olympics and then be the first woman of color to take that title, to take that gold medal. And again, just phenomenal. And she had every reason to give up on that journey if you know her story. And so I think it's so important when you do study these athletes that have achieved something that's mind-blowing to really get into the weeds of how they did that. It wasn't that they just showed up and they were there. And the same thing with entrepreneurs that are able to, like, kill the game. It wasn't like they just showed up. We never hear about those times with, year 1 and 2 or month 2 and 3 or year 4 and 5 where things were horrible and, people were quitting or they wanted to give up. We don't hear about that, right? We just hear about, they got another championship or, they're making X amount of millions of dollars. And I think those early days are so important. Ryan, go ahead and share one of your favorite athlete stories.
I will, but before I get there, I want to address something you said about, because you mentioned everybody always says the end result and the amazing stories. And I've heard this before, and I was listening to a podcast today that just kind of reiterated it. And they were talking about, peak performers. What all peak performers know is whenever they're learning something new, it's always crawl, walk, run, right? And that's the same process that everybody goes through when they're learning, right? It's all about everybody starts at the beginning, and it's gradual progress. And it's those hours of practice, of struggle, of failure, and getting back up and trying again, that persistence, right? Like that is really like that persistent pursuit of your potential, right? That really is that's the process of it. And so you're right. Unfortunately, everybody sees amazing end result, but they truly don't understand how much time, effort, toil and struggle was put into achieving that, perfect 10 or 9 point whatever that they got. So, I just thought that was something that was important to mention within the context of your story. So one of my favorite athletes of all time, because I'm a huge football fan, has been Tom Brady, right? I mean, his story's not unknown. 6th round draft pick, like no one, like the pick like 199. No one ever expected him to. I mean, ran a god awful 40, like it looked terrible in shorts. Like no one ever expected him to do anything, right? And here he just, went to his 10th Super Bowl and won his 7th Super Bowl, right? And before him, the most Super Bowls by any one quarterback was 4. So you want to talk about like lapping your competition, right? But what I find as remarkable or more remarkable than, all these achievements is more what he's known for having, like his effect on his teammates, right? And before he went to Tampa Bay, it was always, is it the coach or the quarterback? Was it New England? Is it Brady or is it Belichick? Like, who is more important? Who's more responsible for, these 6 championships with them? And, it's a good question. It's really hard to separate. But one thing that came about after Tom won his first Super Bowl at Tampa Bay was, that team wasn't that changed this year from the year before, personnel-wise. But all the personnel will tell you the reason they went from a losing record to not only having a winning record, but winning their first Super Bowl in 19 years was because Tom came in and changed the mindset to, we might win this game, to we're winning this. Like, no doubts in our mind. And it just shows the power of leadership, but the power of, like, that mindset, right? Like this having the pure, unadulterated faith that, like, no matter what's coming, we will handle this, right? And we'll handle this together as a team, as a unit. And, of course, he's, does so many things beyond just that. I mean, from like how they practice, how they're professional, like all that kind of stuff too. But that to me is just like that mindset, that will is what took him from no one ever thinking he was going to play a quarterback at all to, probably the greatest of all time. And what that shows is like the power of the power of the athlete, like you're talking about. It's setting those goals. It's practicing every day. It's establishing those habits. It's working on getting up every time you're knocked down. It's working on improvement. It's all those things that we talk about that we try to teach our kids through sports. And he is the shining example of when all of those amazing lessons that we want sports to teach, when they come together, what can be achieved, right? And like that right there, to me, is the athlete mindset, right? It's all those, because what it is it's basically the athlete mindset is resilience. It's what it is, right? Because success in life is all about resilience, and that's what it teaches. That's what sports teach, and so that's what I really like about Tom.
No, I love that, and I watched the Super Bowl, and I will say it's funny that you mentioned the whole thing about mindset with Tom Brady, because I remember sitting and turning, to my sons and my husband were watching it with me, and I said, you could just see the difference in their mindsets. Like, this team just looks like they're owning this. It was, I mean, they obviously they made it that far. They're both extremely talented. So it does come down to mindset. And you mentioned resiliency, and one of the things I talk about is persistence. In order to be persistent, you have to be resilient, right? And so you had mentioned also failure, which is the first thing that I had mentioned in terms of the 4 things we'll talk about is conquering failure. Entrepreneurs, if you could remember this term, fail fast. Like, be okay to fail, but just do it quickly. If something isn't working, listen, pivot. Get a mentor, figure it out, and be okay, because you didn't really fail at anything. You just learned what didn't work. So it's just getting you closer to what is going to work. It's just getting you closer to that right path, the right invention, the right project. And so again, going back to mindset, like shifting the fear of failure to embracing the concept of I am learning something new. I am eliminating and filtering out what I should not be doing. This is what this process is about. And we've talked about this in some of our earlier episodes. It's about the journey. So, conquering failures, it's that F word, fear, failure, the F word really can make the difference between, accomplishing your dream, executing an idea, or just walking away. And I put it first because I meet so many, and I've been there. You do the whole self-pity party, and, oh, I'm horrible, blah, 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 when you fail. And then, you know what? Go through it, go through the motions, and then get over it quickly. And say, all right, well, I learned something. Let me see what else is going to work. And so conquering failure is something that you should consistently, we talk about that word, consistently work on. What are your thoughts?
It's so funny because, I think a lot of that fear of failure comes from, our education system, because in theory, every assignment, every test, every whatever, you start with 100 and you essentially work your way down. And so by every question that you miss or every mistake that you make, and that really creates a lot of anxiety in a lot of people, right? And back to the crawl, walk, run thing, when you look at a small child that is learning to crawl, and especially when they're learning to walk, think about how many times that kid fails. They fall on their butt, that they can't coordinate their feet and their hands. And I mean, but that whole learning process is a series of failures, corrections, and new attempts, right? And that's how humans have evolved to learn, right? And so, this fear of failure in some ways is crazy and irrational, because that's not how humans learn. Humans learn through trial and error. And once you, I guess, know that, acknowledge it, accept it, and really embrace it, that's just part that's just part of the learning curve. Failures always hurt, but when they're expected expected might be the wrong word, but when they're not a shock anyway, it's so much easier to deal with, because your mind's already kind of it's primed for it. And then now, if you have a good plan, you can pivot accordingly and try something new. So I think that's important to acknowledge as well, as far as reframing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I love the example you used. And that's a great lead in to our second point, which is challenge yourself. And, if you're on a team, it may be an individual sport or a team sport. There's been times where you've been pushed past what you thought was your limit. Your coach or your teammates, encouraged you and to go beyond what you think you can do. And that is exactly what you need to do when you're an entrepreneur. I'm just going to read this quick paragraph from the book. Triumphs help build self-confidence and motivation. Only when you challenge yourself to reach for the highest peak in whatever you do. Discover the harmony between your longing to succeed and your inclination to challenge the status quo. I'm just going to jump down. Defining growth objectives for yourself is an extraordinary method to add some adventure into your workday and improve your talent and aptitude. Setting records and breaking them will only motivate you to grow as a creative entrepreneur.
I love that. I totally agree. I mean, so, it's one of those things as you're growing, it's so easy to get discouraged, right? And it's kind of it's almost like gamifying the system by setting these challenges. But it's weird. Humans are motivated when they're working towards something, right? And if you don't have that goal to work for, that direction that you're shooting for, humans are kind of lost. We kind of just, found, right? And so, you're right, setting those goals, having something to work for, that really is how you push yourself beyond, because you're looking for ways to achieve that goal, whether it's learning a new skill, whether it's putting yourself out there to make those contacts, or to learn how to public speak, or whether it's making whatever it may be that you need to do to accomplish that goal. If you didn't have that goal, you wouldn't do that, because humans by nature kind of the status quo because it's safe, right? But anytime you learn something new or try something new, there's that element of risk, right? And the risk in this case would be failure, which unnerves people, right? So again, by getting kind of comfortable with the fact that everybody fails, and you're probably going to have at least a hiccup along this journey, but yet learning comes from those hiccups, comes from those failures, comes from reevaluating and trying something new. It kind of, if it doesn't at the very least give you the courage, it at least gives you the intestinal fortitude to stick through it when things, don't go according to plan. So,
did you just say intestinal fortitude, Ryan?
I did. I could have said it more crudely if you would have preferred. I thought that was a little more fancy way of saying it. I did.
The intestinal fortitude. I'm gonna have to remember that phrase.
What would you have preferred?
This is a good time to break for our sponsor, and we're going to cover one more point before we take a question from our listener. We do have a listener on the line. So let's break for our sponsor. I'm laughing over intestinal fortitude. This episode is sponsored by Pink Kangaru, the home for wild thinkers. If you are a podcaster and you are looking to take your show to the next level, then Pink Kangaru is for you. It's a place that brings like-minded individuals, those that think outside the box, together on Pink Kangaru, and that's kangaroo.com. If you're looking for support, if you're looking for strategies on how to launch, grow, and monetize your show, then definitely check out pinkkangaroo.com. Our team is here to help you get your stories out there to your listeners. All right, that's it for our sponsor, and let's cover one more topic before we bring on our listener. Bring on our listeners to ask a question. And you had mentioned risk, right, and resiliency, and those two things I think work really well together because, again, as an
along with intestinal fortitude. Yep.
And along with intestinal fortitude, you have to take risks. You're creating something that doesn't exist. There's no one that's taken this path, exactly the way you're doing it, right? I mean, you could be a fashion designer, but what you're creating is different, and how you're doing it and where you're doing it and who you're doing it with is completely different from the next person and the next brand. And so you are like on this journey that can seem so frightening and so lonely, but you have to be willing to take that risk. You have to be willing to just look at this journey, this experience of entrepreneurship as literally laying one brick at a time. And it helps me anyway sort of not get overwhelmed by that big picture, because most entrepreneurs can see the finish line. They can see that, right? And let's just look at a marathon, for example. You're running 25 miles, and you walk the course, and you're like, okay, boom, there's the finish line. But you may not know what you're going to encounter on each mile, to that finish line. And that in and of itself, the unknown, may stop you. A lot of entrepreneurs get sort of, what is it called, paralysis due to fear, and so I do think it's, again, if this is something that you're choosing to do, or is this something you've already chosen to do, be okay with taking risks. And as Ryan had said earlier, that resiliency, that persistence, failing fast, looking at it as a learning opportunity, is going to help you be more courageous in taking those chances.
Yeah, and it's always funny because I guess I've always looked at things differently, and like the prime example is, when you talk about entrepreneurship, so many people will tell you that starting your own business, starting your own thing is so risky, and it scares people, and it's one of the things that keeps people in jobs for forever. And I've always kind of looked at it the other way around, like it's really not that much more risky than a job, because any of us can be fired at a job at any time for any reason, whether it's downsizing or poor performance or boss doesn't like you or whatever, right? And so, like people talk about job as like security. Well, no, it's really the illusion of security. And the thing about the entrepreneurship thing is, like, there's no illusion of security there. And people love that illusion of security. It just makes them feel comfortable. And so, like, my argument's always, life is full of risk, right? It's just, it's, I guess, knowing what types of risk you're comfortable with, and then going with those types of risks, right? So, you know, I by nature, I'm kind of a gambler. I don't like to gamble, but I'm kind of a gambler when it comes to making decisions. And, you know, sometimes it works out great, and sometimes I have, you know, massive, like, you know, total wipeout, like embarrass the hell out of you, like you, your family, and your ancestors type of failure, right? But, you know, I learn a lot along the way, right? Whereas, you know, just because you don't take those type of risks, maybe you try and minimize as much as possible, but, you know, you're still going to have risks. They're just going to be, this way. Everybody has risks that bother them more than others, right? I think it's all about accepting what kind of risk works for you. And like I said, and also understanding what kind of, you know, really risk taker you are. And some people just are comfortable with small risks, and some people are comfortable with big risks. And once you know which one you are, then those are the type of risks that you take, right? Because if you're uncomfortable, here's the other thing. If you're uncomfortable, you will not perform well once that decision is made to take that risk. Well, you know what?
I'm gonna jump in there for a second, because we hear a lot about, you know, stepping outside your comfort zone. And so I want to return to that after we take our a question after a listener. And when you said take risks that you're comfortable with, to an extent, I think in the beginning that's okay. But if you stay within that little bubble, you know, are you really going to go that extra mile, you know, take that leap of faith to take your business to the next level? So let's hold that thought. I'm going to challenge you today. See, listen.
I have an answer for that. I have an answer for it. Hey, I love challenges, but I have an answer.
Well, we're gonna address that answer when we get when we're done with answering a question from our listeners. Darren, welcome. Darren, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Going well. Thanks for calling in.
My pleasure.
So do you have a question on awakening your inner athlete or developing an athletic mindset, or is there something that you would like to share?
My first question for both of you would be, what actually awakened your inner athlete or mindset? Because you actually, you know, feel that drive, that power that you can exceed. Because outside the sports world, because I was an athlete myself through high school and college, actually still am in another sports arena. But what actually awakened that in you after you left your particular sports arena and decided to delve into entrepreneurship?
Ryan, you want to take that first?
Yeah, I can do that. So it's funny that you say that. So I never had to reawaken my inner athlete once I left the sports arena, but there are definite things that within my current arena that definitely like stoke the flames of passion, right? And so for me, it was finding what type of career path that I could really utilize my inner athlete the way I wanted to. So that was part of it for me. And then once I found it, what really currently stokes it is when I learn something new that I can now apply like to my clients, right? And that to me is just so super exciting, because I can now take that information, and then when we're in like coaching sessions, because I end up on a lot of creative phone calls, so I get to now use what I've learned in a creative manner to help my clients achieve their goals, change their life, you know, whatever. And that's really what because it's what awakens my inner athlete. Because not only is my inner athlete competitive, but part of my inner athlete happens to be like, you know, leader and helping people achieve their goals, helping the team achieve their goals. It happens to be kind of part of my just, you know, athletic makeup, right? So that's really what currently awakens my inner athlete is learning something new and cool and exciting that I can apply to my life and to my clients.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's actually a really great question, Darren. Thanks for asking that. And yeah, you know what? I think mine is, there's two parts to that. And I was like, that's such a good question, and like bunch of answers went through my mind. But what I would say, two things. One, having been an athlete for so long, I absolutely love working with a team. And so building the right team with the skill sets and the chemistry and the skill sets and, using strategy to do that really excites me. And when they're like hitting it, just like on a sports team, if everyone is hitting what they're supposed to be hitting, then you're going to win the game, right? And so I love to see that momentum and growth when you have that right team put together and figuring out that puzzle, because it very much is problem solving. And, this piece almost fit. Okay, let's figure out another piece that fits better. So that's something that really motivates me, because it takes me back to those days of being an athlete. Another thing, too, is having a goal that's bigger than myself. And, I've done individual sports. I ran track, and so you have your individual medals. I've done gymnastics. You have your individual medals. But then I also did softball, and I've done volleyball. And even with the team sports that were individual and you still had a team win or score, the bigger goal was, did the team win? Like, that always felt better to me than if it was just me alone that took home that medal or that trophy. And so that was a bigger goal that was outside of myself, which really pushed me, which really motivated me. And I love that, having a team spirit. I have a child that's in a college sport right now, and I'm that parent in the stands with the big letter, with the pom. I am that parent that's yelling and screaming. Color coordinated.
Waving it.
But it's the collective. It's, cheering on for that bigger goal, and that I think also helps awaken my inner athlete. I hope that helps, Darren.
Yeah, that really helps. That's really clarifying. And, there's two different aspects of what actually awakened your inner athlete and made things more complete for you. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you have another question? Yeah.
Yeah, because I was an athlete through high school and college. I was a cheerleader in college, and I my last competitive competition, I think, was 3 years ago. And if I can, I'll compete again. I'm age 50, and I think I still got what it takes to at least do all my skills as far as stunting is concerned. Tumbling, I can throw a back tuck here, back handspring and stuff like that. Sweet. But I love what I do. I actually awoke my inner, entrepreneur. Well, I guess I started in college. I started teaching and training and doing choreography in college for high school teams and programs, and I developed that into a little side business until I realized it was my passion, even though I went to school for exercise physiology and neurobiology, and I went back for my master's in biotechnology. When I was working for a pharmaceutical company, I really found out that my passion was actually, being involved in the cheerleading world, which is quite a big world, but most people don't realize because they look at other sports. But I decided to start my own business there in 2004, and I've been running ever since. Quite successful. I travel internationally. I work with the Russians and the Belarusians, as well as other groups in Europe and in Jamaica, in Canada, and different countries like that. And I really love what I do, and my passion for it caused me to work really, really hard and dig deep, because to start a business from scratch in a niche where the business never existed before took a bit of time, but I was very happy and satisfied with the results that came from it.
And the irony is, you're probably getting a lot of the reverse thing that women get, you being a male in a very female-dominated sport. I'm sure in some ways was a little bit hard to get over too, as far as teaching. That parents accepting you as a teacher of a bunch of young women. I wouldn't be surprised if that was a hurdle in the beginning.
Actually, for me, it really wasn't. I coached throughout college. I was I guess I'm more like a father-like figure, and I really would try to mentor the young women as much as possible. And a lot of guys actually get into cheerleading at a later age than girls do, and they actually stay longer into older age and coach. But I've noticed that young women lose their confidence between the ages of 12 and 14, The self-confidence, and you really have to.
Yeah,
you really have to teach them that they can be strong, they can succeed, and be confident and trust in their own abilities and grow as a coach. And that was one of the things I really love to do, was help these young men and women believe in themselves and grow their goals. So it's kind of fascinating. Actually, more men get into cheerleading in college, and then they continue longer in the field, because they compete and actually coach. They're mostly female coaches, but there's a large population of male coaches, that you would expect because the sport at the younger age is definitely dominated by women and young girls.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No, that's really interesting. I didn't realize all those statistics as well in terms of when male cheerleaders actually enter the sport. And so you said you were an athlete also in high school. What sports did you do in high school?
I played football, baseball, and ran track and field.
So talk about taking risks,
How'd you get
right,
cheerleading?
Ryan?
Yeah. What was your question?
So I was going to say, talk about taking risks in terms of going from a very traditional sport, traditional sports, to non-traditional, and then applying that to entrepreneurship, because as you said, you were creating something that was in a new niche, and you had to do something that most people weren't doing. And when you were creating your business, your coaching business and consulting business in the world of cheer. And, I think that's a great example for our listeners. And if you are passionate about something and you do have like that bigger goal, that bigger, what value are you providing, right? If most entrepreneurs are doing something because they want to solve a problem. And typically it's a problem that they personally experience or someone close to them has personally experienced. And so it's that problem solving, it's helping that community or that individual, that keeps you going through the challenging, those challenging days. And you may start this idea and it may completely fail. There's no guarantee, right? And so it's important to know that up front and be willing to take those risks. Thank you so much, Darren, for sharing. And because you had shared so much wisdom, I'd love for our listeners to also know how to follow you and get in touch with you. Do you have a website or Instagram handle or social handle that you want to share?
My Instagram is Big D at 2000X.
All right, cool.
Big D 2000X. The company I run is called Planet Stunt. If you want to email me, if you're interested in mentorship, choreography, and so forth, and cheerleading, email me at bigd@planetstunt.com. And my website's down because it's being refurbished, so those are two places where you can reach me. And,
cool.
I love what I do. If anyone needs help or guidance and so forth, and, I'm more than happy to help. I've been involved in the industry since 1989, so I guess that's a bit of time. But I'm passionate for the sport. I love helping out the young athletes and coaches and training and developing the best way I possibly can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for joining our show and asking such an informative question. And definitely stay in touch with us. Feel free to call in on a future episode. Listen in every Friday night. And again, thank you so much, Darren.
Thank you for having me. Great. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. And so, Ryan, I'm going to have a really quick battle with you because we still have one more topic that we have to cover before we wrap up the show. Going back to your point about being comfortable and my challenge to stepping out of your comfort zone. So you said you had an answer. What was that answer?
Yeah, so, when you're talking about that, I agree because people do get in the comfort zone. And what I was kind of talking about is like, everybody talks about getting out of their comfort zone, and just because I had my answer, I could have answered it much better 5 minutes ago. Yeah, I know it happens when you focus on the actual caller, right? So I agree. You have to get out of your comfort. You have to do things that you're not comfortable with in order to grow, right? And that's very true. But usually what we're talking about there are things like public speaking if you're afraid of public speaking, networking if you hate networking, making 10 cold calls a day, that kind of stuff. That's what most people are talking about when they're talking about getting out of their comfort zone. When I was talking about the risk thing, if you're taking a risk that you feel is too big, right? And by that I was thinking something like, starting a business and you're taking a $100,000 loan and you freak out with debt, right? Debt just does not jive with the way you were raised, and it just freaks you out. That right there is probably going to prevent you from being at your best day in, day out from a creative standpoint, because you're always worried about that debt that you have. Like, my mom is an amazing employee. She does amazing work. She would be a terrible business owner, mostly because the debt would just stress her to death. That's all she would be thinking about. It'd be like one of those like constant autoplays in the back of her brain, 24/7. And she would not be happy. She would live a miserable life, and her creativity would suffer, right? Because it's hard to be creative. It's hard to be creative when you're scared, right? Like fear and creativity don't work well together. And so that's kind of what I was talking about by knowing what kind of risk you're willing to take. Which I'm glad you challenged me, because it allowed me to clarify what I meant, right? So does that kind of make more sense now, based on what I'm saying?
No, it does. It does. I agree. I think that you want to push yourself and challenge yourself, like we said.
Yeah.
But you don't want it to be to the point where anxiety becomes that gripping force that leads you, as opposed to, like you said, that creativity. So let's quickly just wrap up with the last topic: be truthful. And I'm just going to open it up really quickly with a couple of the sentences in the book. Aim to be open and honest in all your business dealings. Never try to portray who or what you are not. Untruth can quickly ruin your reputation or tarnish your brand. So I want to tie that back into Awaken Your Inner Athlete, because if you think about your you think about the most popular athletes today, and or think about your favorite athletes, most of these individuals have great reputations. And their character, how they dealt with people, how they dealt with their sport, really helped elevate them above their peers. And so I want to, stress how important it is that character, that, having that strong character, being transparent, being truthful, how important that is as you grow your business. And so I know this is something, Ryan, you and I were talking about, earlier today. It was like, okay, what does that have to do with being an athlete? And we'd love for you to chime in really quickly here.
Yeah, so, it really boils down to, character and integrity, as far as, we're talking about as far as being truthful. But really, to me, it's integrity. And what integrity is that your thoughts and your actions match up, right? And so, if you can get if your thoughts and actions are matching up, as far as that, I don't care what it is, whether it's an athlete, whether it's, a business person, and your actions are they're positive, they're team building, they're keeping your customer in mind. All of those things are going to work together to build that reputation that you're talking about, and really lead you toward it leads you towards success, right? Because you're gonna have failures, you're gonna have setbacks, and if you treat people well, if you do the right things, people are going to be there to catch you and lift you back up, right? And that's kind of what you're talking about, because humans are amazing BS detectors. We can detect inauthenticity. Say that 3 times fast. Really well, right? Yeah, it's a tough word. That's so, if you can be true to your authentic stuff, not only are you going to perform at a higher level, but you're going to resonate with people that you want to resonate with, and they're going to be much more likely to help you, when the chips are down. And that's exactly what a team does in sports.
Yeah, who's going to support a team member who's just a jerk?
Yeah, exactly.
Put it out there. But this is so much fun. I can't believe an hour has flown by already. It's crazy. Thank you so much, Darren, our listener who's called in. If you have any questions, definitely check us out on BBS Radio, and you can find our show page. There's a call-in number there. If you haven't already, get your book, Unleash Your Supernova. Download and subscribe to the podcast, Unleash Your Supernova. We are so appreciative of you joining us again for another evening of our live show. Thank you so much, Ryan. It was a ton of fun. And
As always, it was.
As always. And I guess I'll see you next week.
Yeah, have a great week, everyone.
All right, have a great week, guys.